Underpasses filled with water, long traffic jams, stagnant water everywhere. This is what happens to India's national capital each time there is rainfall. This time it's no different. 3 hours of rainfall on early Friday morning, 1 person dead, 8 injured in Delhi. And to make matters worse, the roof of Delhi Airport's Terminal 1 collapsed. Tens of thousands of office goers were stranded on the roads for hours. And these are just the pre-monsoon showers. It's no wonder the taxpayer is angry. And the 5 big questions we're asking this evening: why does Delhi have to deal with waterlogging year after year after year? Why are the stormwater drains that wick water away from the capital insufficient to channel away this water? Why are Delhi and Gurugram flooded, but Noida, just across the Yamuna, is untouched? What role does the river Yamuna play in the Delhi floods? And finally, does Delhi need a new master plan to cater to floods and climate change? Joining me to discuss this today are Professor P.S.N. Rao, Dean, School of Planning and Architecture, Professor KT Ravindran, Town Planner, also from the School of Planning and Architecture, and in the studio with me are Nivriti, Mohan, and Kartik, Malhotra, my colleagues. Kartik, how long did it take you to get to work?
Thankfully, I stay in Noida, and I've always chosen to live close to work. My place of office is Noida, my place of residence is Noida, and it did not affect me as much as it affected a lot of other colleagues who've come from Delhi, Gurugram, Faridabad, and all other places outside of Noida.
This is one question I've been dying to ask, and I'm happy we have our experts here. I'm going to ask them this today evening. Why is it that every time there's a flood, it's Delhi and Gurugram that go underwater? You need a submarine to navigate them, and Noida is untouched, and you're dry as a bone. Let's start by asking Professor Rao this. Professor Rao, why is it that Delhi and Gurugram go underwater every time there is a flood or there is pre-monsoon showers, and Noida is untouched?
Yeah, thank you for having me on this show. Firstly, let's talk about Noida. Noida happens to be a planned city. Everything in Noida has been planned properly. Noida is a case where the entire parcel of land has been acquired. All the roads and the infrastructure in terms of the stormwater drains, the sewer lines, everything has been designed and laid out, and therefore it works. So urban planning actually works in the case of Noida. And at the same time, you have very few unauthorized settlements in Noida. Therefore, whenever it rains, the water finds its way and it moves out. When you come to Delhi, the similarity is there in terms of land acquisition, because all the land in Delhi was acquired and the city was planned. But unfortunately, somewhere we lost our way, and then we couldn't cope up with the demands, and there were a large number of unauthorized colonies which came into being. And therefore, planning went hunky-dory, and then you don't have a proper drainage system. So Delhi is actually a lost opportunity as far as urban planning is concerned. When you come to Gurgaon, it is a very, very bad example of urban planning, because only some sectors of Gurgaon you have land acquired and properly planned, whereas the large number of colonies developed by the 300 or 400 odd private real estate developers, they are all in all kinds of shapes and sizes, and they are not properly connected. There is a concept of an external infrastructure and an internal infrastructure. So it's a very, very complicated case. It will take me a very long time to explain why Gurgaon doesn't work, but then that is exactly the reason. Essentially, to summarize, I think wherever the fundamental principles of planning are adopted, and wherever you plan and you implement your plan in a proper manner, things do work.
Yeah, but, absolutely. There can be no substitute for good planning, and clearly Noida is where the planning has been done, a planned city, as opposed to a completely unplanned Gurugram and Delhi city as well. But Professor Ravindran, is it too late to save Delhi? I mean, we keep hearing of this year after year. Delhi doesn't have stormwater drains. Its stormwater drains are Mughal era or British era, or they have not been replaced. They've almost 100 years old. What will it actually take the authorities to wake up to the fact that Delhi needs stormwater drains? You cannot have a city, the national capital of the third largest economy, Kartik, in a couple of years, the third largest economy in the world, having a city that just submerges every time there's, forget a monsoon, a pre-monsoon shower.
I think our perception that the main problem is the absence or the malfunctioning of the drainage system is not entirely correct. Drainage system that's planned and is provided for on the sides of the roads, and they have a certain role to play. But the main problem, as I see in Delhi, is that Delhi is not just one planned city. Delhi is a kind of a patchwork of cities which are planned differently, and a lot of the areas are not even planned. That's one issue. Second issue is whatever planning has been done in Delhi has not considered the slope of the land as a primary criteria for planning.
Right.
It has examples like Sarai Kale Khan, which are completely low-lying areas in which intense development is now being proposed and is being developed. An entire bus terminal is being proposed in a land which is totally prone to flooding. Or if you take various other examples across the city, all these drains that has been planned, which people are saying, you said they're old and they're planned in the British period and so on, they were not drains like the way they are now. They were not channelized drains. They were actually small rivulets which had their own floodplain.
Yes.
And they were allowed to flow in a certain way, filling the space when it's required and not filling the space when it's not required. Whereas we have channelized them by concrete pavings on either side in order to save more land for development. Right. And that is the primary reason that we see that they are not able to carry the capacity of water that comes into to their system. So it is actually because of planning rather than the absence of planning that these nalas have become dysfunctional.
Absolutely. And the river, the floodplain that you mentioned, Professor Ravindran, my colleague Nivriti Mohan here has extensively documented the havoc that we've caused on the Yamuna's floodplains. Nivriti, tell us, because I remember last year you did this fine documentary on the Yamuna, the problem of Delhi's drainage can be traced to the Yamuna, the fact that how we've indiscriminately constructed urban dwellings on the floodplains of the Yamuna.
Yes, the Yamuna floodplain is around 10,000 hectares, and out of 10,000 hectares, 3,500 hectares or so has been encroached. There are illegal and unauthorized colonies that have been developed, and these colonies are being authorized now.
Right.
They are being provided the sewer system, the drainage system, but actually if you go to these colonies and you do a reality check of these colonies, at some places you will find that the road has come up and the basement of the buildings has gone down.
Right.
The buildings are lying low and the roads have come up. So in such a situation, when the roads get flooded in these colonies, you can imagine what will happen. The water will flow down to the houses, which is happening right now. The water is entering into the houses of people in these unauthorized colonies, and you have around 2,000 or so colonies that are yet to be authorized.
Yes.
But I don't know, I fail to imagine and think how the government is going to, if they authorize it, how will they manage it? It is very difficult to manage these colonies, even if they authorize it, provide all the amenities.
But there's also that issue that you covered in your story about the bridges, the number of bridges. There's 22 kilometers of Yamuna that flows through Delhi, and there are, 25 bridges? That's literally a bridge every 800 meters.
Yes,
that's diverted the flow of the Yamuna. That's, the natural flow of the Yamuna has been diverted. How does that kind of affect this flooding of Delhi?
Yes, that is what KT sir was also talking about, is that it is not only the poor people who are encroaching, and they are encroaching because they were allowed to do that.
Yes.
They were not stopped at that point of time. And now it has become a bigger problem. So it is also the government who has encroached upon the embankments of Yamuna.
Yes.
They have built bridges.
Yes.
They have built
Bus
the
terminals,
entire ring road
that's
is
right.
on the Yamuna floodplain.
It's on the
So
floodplains.
absolutely, it is the lack of a proper master plan, and if the master plan is there, then it is not being implemented properly.
Yeah, the master plan is an issue that I want to come to ask our experts this. But you know, Kartik, since you look at the economy so closely, at the point that I was making about India is going to be the third largest economy before the end of this decade.
right.
The national capital of this third largest economy doesn't seem fit for purpose. You either have extreme pollution, just 6 months back you had poison in the air, you have heat waves you can't deal with, you have floods that you can't deal with, and you're certainly not prepared for any of these challenges. How does it affect brand India's credibility? You know, the fact that, and let's not forget the roof of the Terminal 1 collapsing.
You're right.
Yes.
So, you know, I think while it's important to single out Delhi today, on a day like today, where
Yes.
where we've seen clogging of roads and we've seen Minto Bridge submerged again and people taking hours navigating through traffic and waterlogging, getting to wherever they need to get to.
Yes.
But I think there's a more generalized problem with urban infrastructure in India as a whole.
Yes.
Now, you can't single out Bangalore, the traffic in Bangalore, the flooding in Bangalore.
Yes.
You can't single out, you know, the city of Mumbai, the city
Yes.
that never sleeps, literally never sleeping because there is some construction or the other always on in the city. Right. So I think there are multiple problems
Yes.
across planning districts where you attract capital.
Right.
You've got to have a more diverse list of cities where there is job creation,
Yes.
where corporate houses come and make their investments, where international players see value in investing. I'm really betting big hopes on Amravati being at least one such city, you know. But I think we've really got to decongest our cosmopolitan cities, our metro cities, by implementing measures which don't take jobs but rather create jobs outside of these cities.
Absolutely.
Now, specifically to your question, Sandeep, on the kind of economic impact they have, I think that economic impact is huge. Let's talk about, let's say, the Delhi terminal today, right?
Yes.
Number one, I think fundamental question, it was an airport which was planned. It was an airport which was built by a private sector company,
Yes.
GMR. There should have been enough audits implemented. There should have been enough checks and balances to ensure, and today, like you mentioned, is just pre-monsoon. It is not even heavy monsoon season yet. In a pre-monsoon shower, a canopy collapses, killing at least one person, injuring at least another 8 people. This is a private sector company which has built it. Where are the audits? How many times in a year does it get audited across different weather patterns, different heat conditions, different rain conditions?
Right.
So, just for an economic context, 1,400 flights operate from Terminal 1 every day. Right now,
It's
we
one
only
of the
have 2
busiest
airlines.
airports in
We
the
have
world.
only
Yes.
Indigo and SpiceJet,
Right.
but 1,400 flights, and we've seen flights have been full. You don't
Right.
really find seats easily, and prices have been going high. On an average, 1,400 flights taking 300 people. You're talking big numbers as loss to the economy just by virtue of the terminal not being
Yes.
in operation today. But
Absolutely.
from an imagery perspective, obviously, you know, I mean, if you remember just a day or two back, there was a report which suggested that Moody's
Yes.
is possibly going to downgrade India's sovereign debt ratings
Right.
if India is unable to solve its water crisis.
Absolutely.
And right now, we're looking at a water crisis of a different level where there's water everywhere. You
Yes.
can't really navigate through that.
Absolutely, and this is like, I mean, it's unimaginable, Kartik. At times it reminds me of Squid Games, right? You're either suffering from lack of water or too much of water, or there's a heat wave on. I mean, all kinds of problems.
It's red
And I
light,
think-
green light,
Yes,
and you're
so
stuck.
Professor Rao, you know, what do we really need to do to make our cities future-proof? We are looking at the third largest economy in the world. We have the best national highways possibly anywhere in the world, better than the ones in the United States, but our cities are literally falling apart. What do we need to do? What's the short answer to this? I know it's a subject of a book and a lecture, but what's the short answer in the short term?
Yeah, we need to take our job seriously. I think there are many things which need to be fixed. First of all, I think we are not taking cities seriously at all. There is so much amount of ad hocism,
Yes.
and there is nobody in charge of the city. Nobody knows who the mayor of the city is. Even if you know who the mayor of the city is, mayors in our country don't have any powers at all. And the municipal, there are one too many organizations. There is a conflict between the water supply board and the gel board and the municipal corporations and the various other departments, parastatals. So somebody puts a road, and then the other day somebody comes and starts digging. So there are several areas where you need to attack,
Yes.
and you need to fix things, and you need to have the right kind of people at the right places. There is a severe shortage. Very recently, I was in a committee of the Niti Aayog, where we prepared a report on the state of urban planning and development in this country. There is a gross shortage of urban planners in this country. Even if the planners are there, you also have governance issues, you have administrative problems, you have interdepartmental coordination problems, and then you have funds. I think we need to heavily invest. We need to heavily invest in setting our cities right. So you need to have a proper system of drainage. You don't have a system of drainage. When it rains, where does the water go? Either the water has to infiltrate. You can't infiltrate because you paved you paved with roads and plazas and everything. I mean, the entire area that was open land where water was infiltrating now can't go down into the Mother Earth because it's all paved. So water has to find its own way. It will go. Where does it go? I mean, the nalas are all choked with garbage and all that, and then there are no drains. So therefore, it is a combination of several problems. You need to tackle the traffic problem. You need to tackle the problem of the vendors who are swarming the cities. So there are a whole lot of issues, and you need to get the priorities right, and you need to invest heavily. And urban finances also, municipal finances also have to be put in order. So there are problems of noise, there are problems of air pollution, there are problems of solid waste management, the problems of less water. Only a few days back, we were talking about the water crisis in Delhi.
Yes.
We are not getting enough water to drink, and then now we are talking about
it's too much water.
Excess water
on the road.
Yes.
I mean, rainwater harvesting, I think that's principle number one.
Yes,
you've got days where there is so much water available. Why don't we have systems to channelize that water? And rainwater harvesting is something we've been talking about forever.
And if all these problems were not enough, there is another problem of jurisdiction.
Yes.
So
I'm going to ask that question of jurisdiction to Professor Ravindran. Professor Ravindran, this fact that what Dr. Rao mentioned, the fact that, we need to take our cities more seriously. We have a multiplicity of authorities. There's so many authorities. Everybody is in charge and no one's responsible. So when something like this happens, it's like, finger pointing. It's that Mexican standoff, everyone pointing at everyone else. What is it that we need to really do to A, retrofit our cities, and B, make newer cities? I mean, China's building cities at the rate of, one a month. And we haven't built, the only city that we've built is what? Since independence, Chandigarh. I've been hearing that.
You're right.
That's the only
planned
city.
If you want to consider that as a city as well. But
let's hear Professor Ravindran's thoughts on this.
Actually, it's very easy to put blame on this so-called idea of multiplicity of organizations. The city is a very complex organization, complex mechanism. It cannot be solved by just one kind of expertise. You require different kinds of expertise. You need different organizations like PWDs and gel boards and pollution control. These are required organizations. The problem is that we don't respect their relationship with each other. It's, in fact, I fully concur with what Dr. Rao just said. It's basically poor governance.
Right.
That's the malaise of our country, is poor governance. And we keep on blaming each other. We keep on finding excuses. We keep on saying we have multiplicity of authorities. The whole world has multiplicity of authorities.
Right.
Just that we are not coordinating their action. Right. Or if their action is, they recommend one thing, is overridden by someone else who's more powerful in the hierarchy. You look at what has happened to Yamuna bed.
Yes.
You know, now, for instance, we are now been largely discussing as to how unauthorized colonies have come and blocked water flow into the river. You look at the number of authorized, planned government institutions which are on the riverbed.
Right.
You look at the number of bunds which have been raised. You look at the way they have trailed the river by, as you rightly mentioned, every 800 meters, one bridge. And in between them, they have been drained, turned into a drain. The
Yes.
floodplain has been encroached continuously. So it is just not that we can blame the gel board or the irrigation department, or you can blame the Delhi government. You can blame everyone. But the fact is that there are overriding decisions which are imposed on those organizations. It's not that people don't understand what is good and what is bad. They do. But unfortunately, what is happening is that their decisions are being overridden by other interests.
Right.
We know that real estate interests are the ones which are ruling the decisions in this country.
Yes.
And we are not willing to point our fingers at that because it's a very important part of our economy.
Absolutely, and
But-
that's
Yeah,
that's one of the major
yeah.
reasons that's leading to all of these problems. As Professor Rao also mentioned, the fact that it's we need to take our cities more seriously. I think that's a great line, and we should actually start by doing it somewhere, at least in the national capital, which is going to be the capital of the world's third largest economy, and we cannot absolutely not have it drowning the way we did today. And last year as well, 2023, record floods. But that's a story that we keep following. Delhi drowning again. We absolutely cannot allow this to happen. Cities are our growth engines, and Delhi is the national capital of the world's third largest economy, one of the fastest growing major economies in the world, that's hit the slow track today because of unseasonal rains, pre-monsoon showers that have taken us underwater. But thank you very much for joining us to our experts, Professor KT Ravindran, Dr. Rao, my colleagues Nivriti, Mohan, and Kartik Malhotra.